Three big sporting moments across the time. Which would
I would think Usain Bolt with the 2008 world record 100 meters. The entire atmosphere and the entire from a TV spectator audience was outstanding. Similar, Messi, I think, winning the 22 World Cup, and from Liverpool side, of course, too, the 2005 Istanbul finals against AC Milan, after being 0-3 down and then winning on penalties. That is, I think, memorable.
The Commonwealth Games announcement 2030 India will host. How will that change means in terms of policy? You feel more funds will come into sport, corporate funds?
Obviously, with any discipline, there's going to be a domino effect. So when a big ticket event is scheduled to happen in India in 2030, the Commonwealth Games, it is going to have an impact across businesses. Saudi just bought EA at 53 billion. That's a staggering figure. But then they have this entire esport movement that they'll be hosting also the biggest prize money tournament shortly there. Now come to pro gamers, right? That number is increasing. In fact, in some of the Asian Games, we have won a medal also in the past in one of the competitive esport games. So that number is also increasing. As I said, most of the publishers here, especially BGMI, Crafton, they are very active. They are not only sponsoring but also spending a lot of money to popularize the games.
We've had a great legacy of cricket in Dubai, and this can be taken for other sports also. Organization of cricket over there is excellent. If you remember, when during the pandemic, the only place they could organize an IPL was in Dubai because of the structure that was available to them. I think BCCI should have an office over there, almost like using it as another frontier for domestic Indian cricket, I will say. Do you think India needs to restart cricket in Dubai? Folks, this one is special. My guest today is my mentor. If you talk about sports management in India, the sector opened up somewhere along when our economy opened up. And if there is somebody who's been at the forefront of all this, then it's my guest today. He's been with organizations like Professional Management Group, Percept, which were leaders in the field of talent management of sports. In the broadcast space, he's been with groups like Z, 10 Sports. He's been there at the strategy level. And the range of sports that he covers are also the mass sports like, say, football, cricket. He's been there, done that, to even new age sports like esports. If today becomes a masterclass in sports business management, then the onus lies on me if I can squeeze out enough. Please allow me to welcome Roland Landers, my mentor, my former boss.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for doing
this.
Thanks,
Samir. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I wanted to start off with just the sports sector. How do you see it, the present contemporary scenario of Indian sport?
So the business of sport is in an interesting inflection point, I would say, because the various aspects of the business, each of those arms, so to say, have evolved and are in a good place right now, starting with the broadcasting to talent management to sponsorships, etc. And of course, we have one of the biggest sporting rights also in cricket, at least. So I would say, and then the emergence of esports and the shape that it is taking now, I would think that in the overall canvas, it's at an inflection point. And for all people, those who are looking at from an investor perspective, from those who want to make a career in sport business, and also for people who want to aspire to be sports people, I would think it would be one of my premium destination points from all of these perspectives.
So you see it as a sunrise industry as such?
Sports business would be beyond sunrise. I think it's well settled. But yeah, I would think esports would be the sunrise
Sunrise
industry. Yeah,
That's the
going
sector
forward.
which will grow the fastest. according to
Definitely,
you.
yes.
Yeah. So there was a recent study. Google, Deloitte, they did a study. Now, you've been there far enough. You know these valuation games, etc. There are a lot of intangible factors associated with it. They valued it at about $52 billion. The largest segment, which was very surprising for me, was not the broadcast space or the IPL as a layman would feel about Indian sport. It's the goods and apparel sectors. So these are good findings, and they are expecting them to grow at a CAGR of about 14%.
Yeah,
You are,
which is healthy, which
yeah,
is good, but yeah, with more people currently aspiring to be amateur sports people,
yeah,
and of course, goods and sporting goods would be one of the largest contributors. But I would think that 52 billion value would be the entire
entire,
canvas. But interestingly for us, when we speak, we are talking about the sports sponsorship side, sport broadcasting side, the sport people management side. All of that, I would think, would be in the realm of close to 5 billion, 3 billion on the broadcasting side, and maybe another 2.5 billion on the sponsorship and other side. So that also is a good value, is a good revenue number. It's not valuation, it's revenue.
yes,
And so the valuations would be maybe 3.5, 4x of that number. So overall, I would think that yes, goods and services would be a large contributor. That will continue, and I think from the interest that we are all looking at from the sports sponsorship broadcasting side, I think there a CAGR of anywhere between 6 to 7% would be a decent number going forward.
would be. We always felt that basically it's the broadcast side which is the biggest, but then this was an eye opener.
But the broadcast side being the biggest, yes.
Yeah.
But also going forward, I would think really for cricket
Yeah.
right now, one is already seeing a negative impact in terms of the fee rights fee that one is vying for in terms of acquiring broadcast rights. So there is something that we may probably
Yeah.
discuss as we go
Yes.
along.
Yeah. So I'll take that. I'll take that. As far as talent management is concerned, you've been there. Right from the beginning. You were with organizations like Percept and PMG, which were forefront at
Yeah.
talent management. How has that evolved over the years?
So I would say that is still a small, because managing talent within sport
Yeah.
is a small part of the overall talent management, right? And when you look at the entire media entertainment landscape, which includes films, and when we films, there's also television and now OTT. So that segment will always be bigger, whereas sport would be a niche, offering within all of this. But so numbers wise is not too big, maybe about 1200 to 1500 crore. But with these private leagues in every sport right now, they would be emerging talent, and as a good talent manager would want to look at emerging talent and then invest into them at an early stage so that they can reap the benefits going forward.
Having known you, you've always been a proponent of multi-sporting disciplines. You've also wanted that sphere to grow beyond cricket, right? As far as talent management is concerned, you see that happening since last we
Yes.
spoke.
Yes, I had seen that happening. It is evolving, because obviously talent, performance leads to talent, and we are seeing that there's decent performance, good performance, world class performance in certain sport like golf, chess, badminton, beyond cricket
Yes.
I'm talking about,
Yes,
and then
please.
those sports people are rightfully getting the due also. I would also add javelin to that. And if you look at the sports people in those fields who have performed at a global level and are world beaters, are getting their rightful due. So I would think that there is still a lot of with a population as large as ours, and I would think that the change toward a more sporting nation would make it possible for talent to emerge in other sport also. There's no doubt why it should not happen.
And it has happened. I was just watching one of these podcasts yesterday with Srijesh, the Indian
Yeah,
hockey goalkeeper from hockey. I think he's now into coaching, etc.
that's right. Yeah,
And so they were asking him what car he drives. Drives a Fortuner. So they are doing well. That
yeah,
means
yeah,
the
yeah,
hockey
yeah.
players are doing well. Badminton, of course. So across sporting disciplines, and as you said, javelin too, right?
Yeah,
And it's
javelin.
not only to Chopra; it's also other young talent is
Yes,
emerging in
yes,
that
yes.
field. The Commonwealth Games announcement 2030 India will host. How will that change the means in terms of policy? You feel more funds will come into sport, corporate funds.
Obviously, with any discipline, there's going to be a domino effect. So when a big ticket event is scheduled to happen in India in 2030, the Commonwealth Games, it is going to have an impact across businesses that make up the sport industry, sport business industry. So there's no doubt because uh, there'll be more sponsors available to people. I would say when there'll be home advantage, so I'm sure performances will improve, and also the entire economy around it, whether it is the hosting side of things, definitely there would be a surge towards a positive drive to enhancement of business in the when we are talking about mainly the sport business, but that will definitely happen. And I think after a long time, one saw that in the 92,
82.
82
82 Asia.
82 Asia,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes,
So, and then after a long gap, a big ticket event,
yeah,
is happening.
yes,
And just like those days, so, the introduction of, I would say, color televisions.
yeah.
So similar now, now we are tech enabled. So there'll be a lot of development that the ancillary businesses also can latch on to and move forward.
The city of Ahmedabad, does that make see they the 82 Asiads they did it in Delhi.
Yeah.
We've had the propensity to have it in Delhi itself. It's a bureaucratic center, right? It's not a business center
Yeah.
still. They did the Commonwealth Games there, 2010. Mixed reactions, overinflated costs, corruption charges that marred the games, but both successful in its own way in terms of developing the infrastructure. But Ahmedabad is an interesting city because this is also a commercial city. Corporate India is present over there. You have worked with, especially in the field of cricket, you have worked with corporates from Gujarat.
Yeah.
Will that make a difference that this sports infrastructure is coming to a commercial city like Ahmedabad vis-a-vis, say, a bureaucratic city like Delhi?
Definitely, it will be. Yeah, because a lot of corporates exist there, as you rightly said. Also, it is very close to the financial hub of the country, which is Mumbai and Maharashtra as a state. So, mostly if you look at the public-private partnership in sport, and that has evolved in the last maybe not a decade, but half a decade, one could see that there are a lot of interest shown by the Gujarat-based companies in ownership of when the private side of ownership of teams or rights, and that would make sense, unlike a bureaucratic city like Delhi. So, and in today's age, in 2030, I would think it will be rightly placed from a timeline perspective to have more involvement of corporates, and I think it's the right place. It has the right infrastructure. Ahmedabad has the right infrastructure for hosting a big Commonwealth Games, and I think definitely it will have a ripple effect on the entire economy.
And also, sir, the corporate world will also understand the benefits of hosting these mega events, right? Because what is going to happen is when the Asiad Games took place, the facility, and that's for a lot of our common fans. When I mean common fans, it's the common people who don't understand sporting disciplines. They feel that basically we spend money on the capital investment into the infrastructure, but this infrastructure then goes back to the society, right? They don't hold back to it. So instead of all those Asiad Game villages became bureaucratic houses like IS and IFS offices. Now here in Ahmedabad, this may turn, right? corporates may be able to buy infrastructure, reality sector, etc. They may see a lot of
Yes, definitely, yeah, and that can be taken forward for uh, helping people who are sports people who with those world class facilities, so that they can also eventually we are all our focus is on helping people perform better, the sports people perform better, so that they can not only deliver results, but then the entire economy around it can be grown. So sponsors take interest, broadcasters take interest, brands take interest because they want to attach themselves with such sports people. So starts with infrastructure, right? Of
starts
course,
with infrastructure.
they will grassroots training
Yeah.
is very important, and the cultivating that interest. But eventually, if there is no infra, then how would a person perform? So once, as you rightly said, once the Commonwealth Games are over, then those facilities can be used to build on that grassroots interest that has been created, and I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah. So I was doing a podcast before you. I did an episode with somebody from the field of badminton, and he works at grassroots level of sport. And you've been in corporate India. You've been with a top 50 nifty company. You all have CSR spends, but CSR spends in sport is not grown more than 2% in the entire pie of CSR. He had a few reasons for it. You feel how can this improve? How can the allocation to sport increase from 2% to, and especially with Commonwealth coming up, do you see that going up?
I would envisage that to happen. Interestingly, 2% you mentioned. 2% is also what is the amount that has to be put aside for CSR. So those numbers match. But yeah, coming back to, I think that uh, the CSR spend right now, was mostly going towards other requirements, maybe for the needy, etc. But I think with more private enterprise showing interest in sport, and involvement with sport and the business of sport in particular, I would think that CSR spend towards sport would increase, and especially uh, it's common sense that when you have a big ticket event, it has almost like a whirlpool effect. And one has seen this in the past,
So
not only,
government also
yeah,
would probably
yeah,
direct the
and then
companies.
also, and the policy side, I think that also the government is working on policy, and that change will also happen, that CSR can be directed. Like we have examples of some other economies like the UK, China, where very focused emphasis was given on sport development, and that has shown results in the Olympics, in the other world class, world level sporting events, in terms of the medals that they've been gotten for their country. So I think we are at a very low point at right now, but from here we can only go upwards. So I think that spends would increase, and not only increase but increase toward the development of sport and sport people.
Does the onus lie also on the people working in the sports industry who are targeting these funds? They've not been able to show tangible benefits to the
I would
CSR
say so.
manager.
Yes, I would say so, because it is a mandate that 2% has to be kept aside and spent on CSR initiatives. But yeah, but do people look at grassroots sport as CSR firstly? That I think, yeah, the onus is also on the people who are in charge of marketing. So
Yes.
see, there are two parts to this, right? One is the marketing of sport, and then there's the marketing through sports, right? So sports also needs to be marketed, right?
Yes.
And that's why I would think we do not have a good number to sport right now after cricket. There have been many who have emerged and then fallen by the wayside. I would think football would be one of them. But if you look at, and I'm talking about commercially viable, and then there is the marketing through sport. I think that we are doing well.
Yeah.
When you're talking about brands using sport to market themselves, we are at a good
You mean the
place.
sponsorship segment?
Sponsorship side or any marketing through sport.
Yes,
So
please.
where sport is used as a medium for marketing, we are at a very good place. But when you look at marketing of sport, barring a cricket,
Correct.
then we've not been able to do that. And I would put CSR marketing in the towards sport in the same bucket.
Same bucket.
It still needs to be pushed with greater vigor.
They have to communicate their
Greater
story
vigor,
better.
greater comms, greater communication, and also then be able to attract the CSR budgets from corporates, which are already, which are already in some way or the other, not necessarily sponsoring but they do have, there are a lot of things that happen. Like, for example, a lot of the employees that they employ would be in some way or the other, playing some tournaments. They would be inter-corporate tournaments. These happen at a very low level. I mean, at the corporate level, it happens. We are not much aware of them. But when that culture is already there, if they are able to market it better, then I would think that, there's no reason why those CSR spends could not be veered towards
Lesson from
sport.
golf, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Golf, I think, hardly needs marketing because every CEO is playing.
Yeah,
that
that's
game.
what. At the higher level, it is. So yeah, you're right. Golf is one exception because of the.
But they can take a leaf out of it. And that's a good idea. What you say is basically propagate the culture of sport. When it happens within the organization,
That's
they will
right,
understand.
Yeah, and market sport better. I think that is where we have not been able to do that to the best of our abilities.
You feel that culturally there's a paradigm shift in India as far as the sporting culture is concerned. I know that you come from a public school where sport was inculcated in you at a very young age. You are an exception maybe at an earlier stage. I've always seen you also play sport recreationally, and by the way, congratulations for winning your tournament
Thanks, sir.
yesterday.
Thank you so
I heard you also shamed a couple of decade guys younger than you.
Was able to do that. No, honestly,
we've
God
always,
has been kind.
we've always known you to be very unassuming, but very fierce and achieving great at recreational sports.
Thanks.
And we want to cover that with you also. But do you feel that there's a cultural shift in as far as just the way people look at sport, Indian society?
I would think so, yes. It is happening. My younger son, for example, goes to a campus in Pune. And the first thing that caught my eye was the world-class sport infrastructure over there. And recently I saw a film also, a podcast where they showcase that a lot of movies are shot there. But I'm just saying that any sport discipline, there are minimum 4 courts. And top notch. I saw the 400 meter track and field. It is top class. Now, when institutes like that are providing infra, and my first comment to my son was that make use of this to the fullest. If you can't do it, then I'll come and use it. So, because now we look at the bigger housing societies, the gated colonies, they are giving decent infrastructure. And at one time, it used to be the big developers, but now even a mid-sized developer would give a minimum facility. So when all of that is available, and I see it from my own complex, the complex that I live in, there are more people, albeit many of those people have to travel every day to work and back to offices and back, but still they take out time, and I can see that shift happening. So recreationally, at amateur level, people are aspiring to indulge in more sporting activities, and that is a good thing because they would also then have a ripple effect on the families, the kids in particular. And
I'm told there's a synergy between the reality sector and the valuation that they get, and when they create sporting facilities within
it is, yes. And then, like I said, so now not only the gated colonies, the campuses, most of the big edu institutes have very good facilities for sport. And then we just spoke about Ahmedabad and cities like that that are attracting, winning bids for world-class events. I think that culturally there's no reason why the sport culture, as we'd call it, should develop amongst Indians.
But you've seen a change.
I have definitely seen a change in the last decade.
And still you are winning at the tennis tournaments, despite higher participation.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more participation than earlier?
Yeah, it was more, and a lot of the younger people also.
Yeah.
And so we have this 1 week of it's called the sports extravaganza, and
Yes.
very good participation from all age groups actually.
So we've seen that with other sporting disciplines also. We link, you know, I had a guest who played throw ball for India at the international level, and she was telling me that across Bombay, there are these throw ball tournaments organized every week. You know, like how we have these tennis ball, cricket tournaments, and the surprising thing is it's women participate. Though it's like badminton, you know, the competitive level, the men and the women take place simultaneously. But across Bombay, the western suburb sector, she says every weekend there is, and surprisingly, it's only women participation. So it's
No, that's an eye opener for me. I never heard
and
it.
that to a game like throwball. So I
Yeah.
was also not aware of across sporting disciplines. So the culture is growing in sport.
Yeah, very interesting. So, just a small example. We've been in this place now for 25 years where we live. But when when I came there at the beginning, of course we had all the facilities, but it just occurred to me that I should start a volleyball team, and we started one, and today there are close to about 60 or 70 people who play. I've opted out because I focus only on the racket sport now, badminton and tennis mainly. But that continues, that club. It's been almost 18 years now since it started. I started it, and then now it's taken forward by the others.
Also, an opportunity for entrepreneurial activity for somebody at a small scale. Everything does not have to be at the IPL scale.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Entrepreneurial activity can happen at this
Yeah,
level
so
also.
as you know, there is a very robust corporate sport tournaments that happen very regularly across cities. Bombay is very active, Bangalore, Delhi, Gurgaon. All of these places have a very active corporate tournament. We were at Z also.
Yes.
There were a lot of these corporate tournaments used to come, and but again, a lot of emphasis on cricket. But I've myself, participated in these tournaments, which also have a lot of racket sport, and it's very interesting and very competitive also. So definitely, I think that going forward as we approach the Commonwealth in 2030, you will see an even more enhanced participation across age groups and across cities also.
I also find that because recreational sports athlete, I recently underwent a sports injury of my own. So, but when you go into all these hospitals, there's an entire sports medicine division.
Oh, yeah.
Every hospital has that.
Yeah.
You try and contact a physiotherapist, and every third physiotherapist has a additional
Sports.
tag saying that I'm a sports
So, yeah,
physiotherapist.
yeah.
So, and who are they catering to? They're catering to this larger
Yes.
recreational athlete group,
The
right?
recreational amateur athlete who, in the case of tennis, as on a lighter note, would be the tennis elbow. Very common injury. For people who played regularly, but then at some point in that playing career, you would definitely get
Made
a
famous
tennis
by a
elbow.
cricketer, though.
Yes, made famous by cricketers. And also the sport, the physiotherapy, the sport. What did you call it? The physiotherapy of sport.
They call themselves sports physiotherapist
That's right.
specialists.
So that also was made famous because of that incident.
Because of Mr. Tendulkar.
Yeah.
And now he's got into the shoe business. So can I just do a side track and ask you? We did a story. Have you seen the film Air? By
seen,
any
yeah.
chance? You've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
the Air? Wonderful film.
Yeah.
And I have a hypothesis what Michael Jordan is to the basketball and the Western world.
Yeah.
Probably Tendulkar is to the cricketing world, right?
Yeah.
Not across, but maybe Asia and something. He's got into shoes.
Oh, is it?
Sports apparel. It's called 10XU. The team will support me if I got it correct. And you think it's a good business decision. A lot of sports people are getting into this, right? They're getting directly into the product. During your time, it was more of endorsement.
Yeah.
But now they're getting into entrepreneurship of sports products. Your views on that?
Yeah, so I think because you mentioned Air, I mean, that clearly, that film, every sport enthusiast should watch.
Yeah.
And really, because it covers the business side also, and the way, the Jordan family negotiated with Nike on and because it also gives longevity to the brand, the sports person's brand, right? So in the case of Sachin, I would think that would be the
Good business
could be a
decision.
good business model. I don't know if it would, shoes in particular, because I think it's very competitive also.
Yeah, yeah.
But definitely, yeah, for the cricketing fans, which I think the India numbers are only so large that it is attractive if you're looking from a business perspective. So launching a new product, uh, you definitely want to depend upon your fans to to support you, and I think that may happen. But when you started with Air, I think I know another cricketer, I won't take the name, who does apparel business for sport and sport people, and they are doing decently well also. So yeah, it tends to that because your sporting years on, everybody can't be a Tendulkar.
Yeah, yeah.
So your sporting years will only be that much. And this kind of keeps your not only you commercially active, but also keeps your brand. If the product is after your named after you, also keeps the longevity of the sports person's brand.
Because earlier it was just vanilla endorsement
That's
kind
right,
of
that's
deals they
right,
were trying
yeah.
to do. Now
Yeah.
they're trying to get into the product range. There's a lot of match between the personality
Yeah.
and this. All that happens
Yeah,
in
and
the business
Virat
world.
Kohli has been
Virat
doing
Kohli.
it for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
I think it makes total sense. Yeah.
So overall, you see that the sector has grown. Sport is established well as a sector. So it's heartening to know that the sports sector is in a good space. Now to the mother of all sports business stories, sir. It all changed with the formulation of the IPL, right? India saw sports business in a completely new light. You were at the forefront at that point of time. I won't ask you to name, your professional commitments would not allow you to name. You were also doing the bid, this thing for certain
The financial modeling and the earlier bid.
and for also certain corporates,
Yeah,
you
bid on
you
behalf
did it.
of corporates. Yeah.
Were you all of you in the corporate sector, were you as positive, very as optimistic about something like the IPL all those years back?
So a multi-city cricket tournament was definitely a good idea and privately owned. The only thing was that, and when we did the business financial modeling, only one part I remember which I was not very positive about in terms of projected numbers, revenue numbers, was on the gate money, and on the licensing and merchandising. So, and I think that's proven true. Even now, I would think that the licensing merchandise would still be the smallest contributor to a team's revenues, and gate in any case has to be shared with the state associations. But I think I may be wrong, but at that time at least I was not very convinced about the revenues that were projected. It's not that it will not give you revenues, but what was projected vis-a-vis broadcasting,
Yeah.
TRPs of 3+ because
Yeah.
you compare that with entertainment segment.
Yeah.
Then a 3+4 in year one in 2008 also was never in doubt. The other revenues, of sponsors attaching their names to the jerseys and all of that was never in doubt. Because these two were the only two which I was at that point in time not very convinced about. And
So
then
I'll just ask you to hold a thought on that so that I explain to my viewers what he means by this. So basically, as far as the revenue is concerned from a sports product, there are 4 sectors from which you earn revenues, right? One is the broadcasting, second is sponsorship, third is ticketing, and fourth is merchandise. So if you go back all those years, 2007, 2008, if you go to something where Roland is talking about merchandise, in India, copyright, licensing of products, like say you'd wear an India t-shirt and you'd see like 10 duplicates on the outside market. So it is very difficult to monetize at that point of time. So what he's trying to explain to you is that, from the 4 segments, they must have made some valuations when he's talking about the financial modeling. And therefore, these 2 segments had not grown at that point of time, had not emerged in India at that point of time. That's why. So I wanted to just basically explain
good,
it
yeah.
to the...
Good you did that because, when we were doing this in 2006 and 7, six, in fact, 5 and 6 for a product in 2008. So really, given this background that you just explained, it was very difficult to to find conviction that there would be suddenly a surge in in merchandise
Yes.
and of teams. Um, but yeah, and one more thing, since we are on that subject, uh, one thing that I was very convinced about was that, and this was later when the 2 years within the IPL, 2008 and 9, uh, you're seeing that the teams was getting a lot of, each of these teams is getting a lot of uh, on their touch points across their websites and the other touch points. I don't think the apps were there at that time, but
Yes.
there was a lot of traffic that was coming onto their, mainly their websites. Not necessarily, and rightly so, they were not seeking or buying merchandise, but traffic was there. So I said that it was very organic,
Yes.
and that organic traffic was not being utilized. I would say that 2 months of whether it was March, April, or April, May, that traffic, and then there's suddenly no activity for 10 months almost, right? So that was something that was an area that I was very that I went to and spoke to a couple of teams also, that you should try to monetize that traffic in some way and then expand the scope of that to at least to the rest of the 10 months when there is inactivity. uh, but even they were not very convinced, and as in hindsight one could see that
Yes.
they could do a lot more with that, maybe with interactive gaming.
Yes.
But yeah, that was what I had in mind, interactive gaming, but that was something that they were not able to kind of foresee or envisage how that would play out. So just a side
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
that
no,
I
but
mentioned
I
there.
that's so interesting that you pick it up, and I don't know whether people today will realize this, that it was a time because uh, under your leadership, I also worked on a product where
Yeah.
we were trying to monetize certain things, and payment gateways were such a difficult area, right?
Yeah.
A mobile payment system was just not possible, cannibalized completely by the mobile operators or the telecom operators. Companies could just not create products or monetize them at that point of time.
Yeah.
And also merchandise, you feel the online segment that has come in, that must have revolutionized apparel, especially sports apparel and merchandise completely, right? So
Yes.
that's the reason why you feel that even those two segments have grown for
Yeah,
these
eventually,
IPL
yeah, the
teams
e-com,
eventually.
once e-com took shape and then came to where it is today,
Hmm.
that has contributed a lot to. So in hindsight, I would think that things would have played out, in the merchandising side, licensing side to a great degree. But I was talking about when it was in the planning stages for showing the teams as what kind of revenues would
Yeah, yeah.
accrue from each segment of the business.
Yes. And this is times before Amazon set
Yeah.
and Flipkarts and payment gateways and UPIs came into the market. So that thing revolutionized. That's helped these IPL teams
It
also
has,
grow
it has, yes.
this thing. So not that but there are, everything is not gungo, right? It's cricket has also always been top heavy down. The flow trickles from top to down. It's not like at the lower end, domestic cricket has never been able to. They've
Yeah,
not been able to market it. Probably a little bit at the county level, but that too not in
yeah,
England. Even Australia, England, which are pioneers in this field, have not been able to do that. It's very top heavy. Today there is a big conglomerate that basically they generate the revenues. They are creating these main revenue streams for these IPL teams. There is an economic time study because of certain changes in how advertising is going to play out. The largest player in this market, Geo, is facing a revenue crunch. Not revenue crunch in the sense, but they have not met their targets. The collateral damages happen to other properties of theirs, like the ISL. Cricket will find its own this thing. Do you think something like a correction can take place in a cricket market?
yeah. I mean, why not? Because a few dynamics that are playing out. One is obviously there is consolidation, within businesses. In industry wise, if you look, there's always consolidation that is going to happen. Broadcasting has seen it, and that's where this comes from, because we're talking about the media rights. And so when there are only two players who can vie for rights, but one is 4x the size of the other competitor,
Yes.
then it's not a level playing field. And also, I've been reading that the overall value of IPL has come down. It's come down for the second year running, I think, and also from a rights perspective. Uh, I was reading somewhere that some of the ICC rights have, they were the rights owner, or the broadcasting rights owner, wanted to renege on the contract. So these are signs that tell us that there will be a correction. So one is consolidation within industries, where it's not a monopoly, but the people who are vying for those rights. And because if there are enough people vying for the rights, that's when valuations go up, right?
Correct.
But if there is only one, and those guys also, the people who are the current incumbents, who are in the bidding market, it also has to make business sense eventually, right? In the overall context of the tenure of the rights. So if it's a 5 years, typically it's a 5-year cycle, right? And then it should make business sense also, because most of these, when the rights are purchased, they are loaded towards the end. That in the 5th year, it will maybe beyond the 3rd year, right? The first 2-3 years would be maybe investment phases, and then towards the 5th year, 4th, 5th year, you would see the fruition of revenues. But so all of these dynamics playing together, I think, and let's look at this vis-a-vis some other sport. Let's say some other sport. I would say, let's say the Premier Volleyball, for example. Now, I would know because there was a company I was associated with, which was the title sponsor for that, and I know the kind of the money they spent for getting that title sponsorship. Compare that with what they got in return, was extremely good deal. Now, if what I'm trying to say is that there would be some other sports also, other sport properties that would be, it always is return, the ROI, right? The important thing is the ROI. So if it's a very small investment and gives you multiples on return, then why not that sport? And then the brand is also, and the sponsor is also, his expectation is also that much, that if it's let's say if the goal is the television rating point, or this reaching certain kind of audiences in a age group, and if those goals are being fulfilled, then even a smaller property. So in the overall context, to answer the question, yes, correction will happen in cricket, and it's already showing.
And
by
it
the
will
examples
probably
I gave.
happen at the international cricket level, not
It is
at the
international-
IPL, the international
yeah,
cricket
it's
level.
already
That's,
happening.
that's the,
But
that's
on the
first
IPL
stage.
level, I would think that I was reading that brand finance, I think that the overall valuations of the overall league has come down. Now,
Overall.
because as I said, the marketing of sport, and then marketing through sport. Now in the IPL, there's no doubt that it's among the top 10
Yes.
valued sport properties in the world. But that vis-a-vis some of the EPL or anything else, that value has come down over the last 2 years.
So I always say that basically, sport mirrors life, and what happens in the normal business world will happen also in the sports world. So it's not that we are being pessimistic about sport, but correction is part. Even the best of stocks undergo a correction, and similarly, that is
Yeah.
something that will happen here also as these markets mature,
Yeah.
right? So
The important thing is the ROI, right? I mean,
Correct.
whoever the guy vying for the media rights will look at his ROI.
Yeah.
And I think in the case of this ICC example, that's exactly what, because it is not giving you the ROI that one would have envisaged. And so you always look at balancing your investments
Yeah.
with the future return on investment.
So I worked with you closely. I know you look at bottom lines when you are evaluating sports properties. You've always been very particular that sports properties achieve there. Of course, there is intangible valuation games, etc. But you've always wanted solid sports products which achieve which are always in the green, right? You don't want them to be in the red always, like certain sporting disciplines. I know you don't cover cricket on a day-to-day basis, but what is happening here is, if you remember all those years back, and that is something you would know during your time, they always wanted to expand that IPL calendar, right? The founder
Yeah.
wanted to expand it, and that way he wanted to organically grow the
Yeah.
market. That has not happened, sir. The calendar for that, there is restrictions. Also, the rain start in by,
Yeah.
they almost playing by end of May. The major commercial centers in India are all affected by the monsoon.
Yeah.
They can't take it. What the IPL teams are doing is they are doing product extensions by going and creating leagues. The Caribbean League, there's a Dubai League happening, South Africa. Most of the investors there in those leagues operated by those countries, home boards. But these are these IPL teams creating product extensions. I don't know how far they are successful. I don't know if you've been able to evaluate them. But do you think that's the correct way for them to look at it? Or should they be looking at certain legacy tournaments at the domestic structure, like the Dilip Trophy, the Ranji Trophy, where they can pick up a product at a lower valuation and create something big out of it?
I would agree with what you're saying, and to answer the question, I don't think it would be a good idea. Some are already doing it, but
You mean
it's
the
a
leagues?
cost. Yeah, it's a cost center, right? I mean, a team,
Yes.
and maybe for those leagues they have different brands who associate with given the audience we have in mind in those countries, but all said and done, and of course these companies who own these teams are global companies, have global ambitions, and obviously it must be serving some purpose. But I would think that you're absolutely right that your second window for the IPL does not seem to be happening given the cluttered calendar and the bilaterals that keep happening. And then there are these other country leagues where these team owners have owned teams. I am really not up to answering whether it is commercially viable or not. But I would think that taking a legacy tournament and then changing the structure
Yes.
would make better business
Especially
sense.
infusion of private
Yes,
enterprise
give
into
them
it.
that opportunity, and I think that would work best because some of these formats, as you rightly said, that is not working. Domestic cricket is not working, although I think the rights are bundled with Ranji, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So, but for the broadcaster who
But
gets
like
the
you say,
India.
sir,
Yeah.
there's no marketing budget for
There is no
that,
marketing
right?
budget, and also, I mean, one feeds. See, it
One
is
feed.
it. No, one feeds into the other. I'm saying
Yes.
that it's there's always a domino effect. So if stadiums are full, broadcasters, when we watch it from sitting in our homes as spectators, it gives you a sense of that of a successful product. But when the stands are empty and although it is shown live, even the spectator at home is not enthused to sit through. So
I get
one feeds into this. I would think it would make a lot of business sense because these are legacy.
But so they'll get it also at a very low cost.
At a way, that's what I'm saying. The business of sport is entirely like any other business, totally dependent on the investment that is being asked, and what is it giving you in return. Apart from your marketing objectives, that I'm sure is being fulfilled. As I said, in this case, maybe these global companies are targeting global consumers, and that objective is being fulfilled. But from a business perspective, I would think extensions like this, as I gave that example of their online touch points, that organically you're getting certain value, but then you're not able to extend it. So in this case also, I would think that some of these legacy tournaments that are quite defunct and
Yes.
and really have and non-descript tournaments, they should be remodeled.
Yeah.
And then given the I would say the team owners should be given the opportunity to look at them at at a very low cost, and then try and enthuse business into it, and then make it a viable product.
Especially the Dilip Trophy, because it was anyways a zonal tournament. There was no team identification.
And now you also have sports focused OTTs, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
even if
please.
a broadcaster does not have the bandwidth to kind of show that. But at least a OTT operator in sport can look at that, and and it makes better sense for everybody, then for the spectators, for the OTT player, for everybody, for the sponsors also.
So I know you can't throw names. I know people talk to you regularly from across the industry. You see some of these big players, like, why haven't we seen them get into the broadcast space here? The Amazons, the Netflix, the Google, especially YouTube. I think is today India's favorite.
There's the largest.
They have not. They did that once with one IPL, but are they looking at sports seriously? And
So I would think that for them, see, Netflix, I was just reading, they've completed a decade in India, and although they have decent numbers, and mainly the business is subscription driven, so it is not dependent on advertising so much. But what I was also reading parallelly in some other OTTs, not the international ones, but that AVOD, advertising driven content, is growing over the subscription level. So really, I think given that dynamic, and really when you ask me the question, for some of these big OTT players who have exposure and investment in sport properties across the globe in some other parts.
Yes.
But here, really, we are still a one sport nation. And then for impact, because when you go back to the days of Star TV, when they were planning to dislodge Z from that pedestal, number one.
Yes.
And then how would you do that with one tentpole activity and then build content around it? So similarly, for some of for in the midst of the legacy broadcasting landscape for cricket, which also covers, by the way, which also encompasses OTT in the rights, then what would be that disruption? That disruption around cricket right now does not seem to be there for them to make it attractive for them to to make that investment build.
But wouldn't you advise BCCI to basically separate this entire domestic rights and try and explore that further?
Yes, of course. Yeah, if that's a very good angle that one can look at. I think that there are so many of these legacy tournaments, and then give it to an OTT operator, split the rights, and that would make business sense for them, and that would also get them a foothold into cricket at some form. And really, the investment will be very low. But with the subscription, and even I would say even if it's ad driven, it would make business sense for everybody.
I want to touch base on one latest happening in the IPL sector. It's natural that after 15-16 years, team ownerships can change. People want to get out of the business. People want to monetize their their investments at this point of time. Mint did an article recently where they said that two teams are up for sale. That is Rajasthan Royals and RCB. RCB, of course, because now it is something that is owned by Diageo. They are on a high because after all the years, they won a tournament. Kohli is on his last leg. So if Kohli retires, you know how these valuations work. It will drop. The women's team is doing well. It said that they were asking for 20x of their top line revenue. And that's why the deals have not happened yet so far. What we also read is change of venues for both these teams, which were mentioned. That was mentioned in a separate article recently. And for other technical reasons, Rajasthan Royals is going to play in Pune. I foresee it as Adar Poonawalla probably, because he was a front runner for RCB. Probably the valuations did not take place. My reason for asking you this question is, when IPL was formulated, it was a curated tournament, right? Unlike the English Premier League. And we were discussing this offline. And I said, one city, one team, does it make sense, or should it be evaluated by the market? Because now the RCB is going to play in Raipur and Navi Mumbai. So can Mumbai hold another IPL team if that's allowed by the rule? Of course, we don't know what the internal rules
honestly,
are.
I also don't know the rules, but taking a cue from the EPL, where the maximum number of the Premier League teams, not only Premier League, but across the leagues, the league championship and the League 1 and 2, would be based out of London in England.
Yes.
And yeah, if there is, uh, if the rules permit, they should have a financial capital like Mumbai or our neighbors in Ahmedabad. They should, why not have,
Yes.
can have two teams
Yes.
or more than two teams if it is financially viable, and also if it makes, if the market is there for exploitation in terms of, brands who want to come and
So
associate.
we also
why not?
don't know what the rules say exactly, whether a same franchisee or same owner can have two IPL teams, right? These people change rules all the time.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
rules change
Yes.
as to how this happens.
I think it would make business
If
sense.
you were advising Reliance, which is one of the major investors in sport
Yeah.
today, would you advise them to pick up a second IPL team if suppose that was to be based in Navi Mumbai?
Yes, why not? Would definitely advise.
Yes. Of course, we don't know what the rules say and
Yeah.
this
If
thing,
the rules
but,
permit, they
yes.
should be.
But I think so. Therefore, IPL also needs to, the governing council needs to keep reevaluating what its structure is, what the rules and formulations are, right? So
Yes,
in terms of policy,
at the end of the day, it is it is a successful product
yes,
from all parameters,
Yes.
right? Across parameters.
yeah,
But for the team owners, who are very important stakeholders in the ecosystem, it should make business sense, and it should be financially viable for everyone, and that's what an IPL has successfully proven to be over the years. And I think if they look at allowing private ownership in a same city,
Same city.
a same owner having
provided there's a
second team,
market for it, right?
yeah, there is market for it.
So like in Punjab, there can't be a market for a second team. I think.
Yeah,
the
maybe,
first
but
team
but
itself,
yeah, but somebody like a Bombay can
yes,
have to.
probably.
Yeah, should have two teams, and maybe the same owner or some
Same
other owner. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely makes business sense.
Yeah. So speaking of legacy tournaments, we touched upon domestic tournaments and where the potential is possible. I wanted to take you back to something called, which I've coined it as a Dubai factor. The 1990s, what today's generation sees as the glamour part of cricket, IPL, was happening in Dubai and Sharjah.
Yeah.
That was, every 2-3 months, India would go play a short-term mini tournament over there.
Yeah,
Now, somewhere by the end of the turn of the century, they stopped this because of the match fixing scandal, etc. And they cut off ties of playing in Dubai. Correct, sir? We've seen the present geopolitical situation where Pakistan and now even Bangladesh is getting ostracized, or we are getting ostracized from that talent pool. Why I mentioned the Dubai factor is because I was reading, something as to what is happening with the demographics of Dubai. A lot of Indians migrate. We've had that issue of, and I mean this demographic which is urban, upward, mobile, has disposable
Yeah, yeah.
income. India and China used to have about 3.5 lakh people basically migrating every year. Now, the American shores, the Western shores are closing to them. They are saying the Indians are finding this newfound venom to go to Dubai and Singapore. These are almost becoming extensions of Indian cities. We've had a great legacy of cricket in Dubai, and this can be taken for other sports also. Organization of cricket over there is excellent. If you remember, when during the pandemic, the only place they could organize an IPL was in Dubai because of the structure that was available to them. Do you think India needs to restart cricket in Dubai? Almost like using it as another frontier for domestic Indian cricket, I mean to say.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point you mentioned, and given the dynamics that you just mentioned about Dubai and our historical ties with them, and recently also from a geopolitical landscape, I think we've already we have some alignment there as well. So I think because there's such good infrastructure, there is a large white collar diaspora now there, which is young, upwardly mobile, including my older son also is based out of there. So I think that's a growing tribe, and definitely we can look at it as an extension. So I think the people making those decisions should look at Dubai as an extension, maybe for even for the IPL, and also
Yes.
as a extension to an Indian.
I think BCCI should have an office over there.
Yeah.
What I mean by an office is basically to run certain operations, to create certain product extensions of probably the IPL. Things like IPL does not always need to be league cricket, right? In the off season, all those years back when they could not do the September format of the tournament, they could probably do a mini tournament in Dubai with probably 4 teams, right?
So that's what I said, that you'll see that there is organic pull towards these teams that are in the IPL by the team owners. Their franchises get a lot of organic pull, and then there's nothing after that to offer. So because we do not have a second window for IPL, a second window for that, then this Dubai can be a good destination for an extension for these team owners to attract sponsors and showcase talent over there, and make it financially viable, and that organic growth from fans and other stakeholders in the team to get exposure with the team. And I think that association will only grow. Definitely, setting up an office there that can exploit all of these conditions makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of business sense, and it should be done.
It's
I
like,
would say.
sir, sport imitates life. So what happens is,
Yeah.
look at America, right? The great distinction. So
No,
they have
EPL,
these. They have
EPL
these
has
bases.
when they do pre-season, they play
Yes.
in other kind of destinations,
Exactly.
and especially Asia, because some of these teams. I am a Liverpool supporter, but
Yeah.
most of these teams come to Bangkok and Jakarta, Hong Kong, India. So India, I think they've not yet come, but maybe.
China and USA are two markets that they tapped.
Yeah, they tap
hugely.
and they do it very, very successfully.
Yes.
And they have a large fan base there. Now that exploitation, like for example, I think 2 years back, pre-season, Liverpool played with AC Milan in Dubai.
Yes.
Now that stadium hardly had 5,000 capacity. It was a small, stadium, and it was a friendly match pre-season. But there were almost 10,000 people there. So, we can look at that because of these parameters that you just mentioned. I think it makes a lot of business sense to look at growing that market, and we have to also keep in mind that cricket eventually, again, I come back to that point that sport cricket also needs to be marketed to newer audiences and newer territories, and of course, the UAE is already a nation that is playing cricket, but I'm saying it still needs to be marketed. We've seen so many legacy brands, go out of business in a matter of years. Nokia is a good example. I mean, one has to look at newer territories. One has to look at and especially such territories that give us almost an extension to what we've already built here.
Yeah, but also that personnel is needed. That they need a dedicated business development and they need to think of having an office over there, which does a BCCI operation. BCCI is such a big conglomerate today that I don't think it should be restricted only to India, right? They should. EPL is not restricted to only the English Premier League.
And definitely it cannot be also, because the largest fan bases outside their home cities is in other parts of the world, and including India. So it would make a lot of sense to have a dedicated and very focused approach there through an office, through somebody who knows the dynamics of sport business to really grow it, and then it makes a lot of sense. I would think that's a wonderful point you brought about.
Can we propagate it for other sports too?
Of course, for other sports also, because
we've heard something happening on the lines of badminton too.
So what I was when we started the interview, I spoke about how these things are all interlinked to each other. So if there is infrastructure and then there is participation, you will get performance in due time with the right coaching and with the other health intake and all of that. You would get performances. Once you get that, there is no reason why this entire amalgamation of sport business should not move forward. I would think Dubai has the infrastructure for any sport, and we also go there every year, and we only seen the infra growing, and also including the Indian diaspora that is there, are very sport minded, because there's an infrastructure they are playing. And I would think that if we are able to use cricket and some of the other sport and make it almost like an extension to our own cities, then it would make a lot of business sense. I think it should happen.
Yeah, interesting. You've also had exposure with one of the new age areas in sports, that is esports.
Yeah.
I don't know too much. I know that once, you had given me some startling article. You'd given me some white paper work to read. The prize money startled me. It was almost comparing to some of the biggest
Bigger
mega
than
events, like
bigger than
Wimbledon
the
and something.
biggest sporting tournaments can give in terms of
Can you
prize
throw
money.
some light on that, and also from an Indian context?
Yeah, so I would see the just like any physical sport for esports, the let's start with cricket, for example. So there are 3-4 components to it. The publisher being one, which is the guy who publishes this esport. By the way, just to take a step back, Saudi just bought EA
Yes.
at 53 billion. That's a staggering figure. But then they have this entire esport movement that they'll be hosting also the biggest prize money tournament shortly there. So having said that, now in India, so the stakeholders in esports are obviously, as I said, the game developer to begin with, the likes like of EA, etc., and then they are the publishers who are very active. Then they are obviously the gamers themselves, the pro gamers, and then there are brands, and there's the hardware providers. Now hardware side, with the development in tech, that is only becoming more and more diverse, and with this new AR VR taking shape, the hardware side of things is on the uptick. In esports, there's also console and PC gaming. That also, I think, from an India context, is growing. But India is a mobile first market. It's a mobile gaming market. And 95% of all gaming happens on the devices. Now come to pro gamers, right? That number is increasing. In fact, in some of the Asian games, we have won a medal also in the past in one of the competitive e-sport games. So that number is also increasing. As I said, most of the publishers here, especially BGMI, Crafton, they are very active. They are not only sponsoring, but also spending a lot of money to popularize the games. And then brands, because it's a young audience, a lot of brands are looking at this sector very actively. So overall, I think there's a good movement happening, and I think and then there are the people who also host tournaments, right? They are the companies who organize tournaments regionally and then leading up to to a national. So all in all, the numbers are not too much, but currently I would say there would be the overall revenue for this sector would be somewhere like $250 million right now, but in the coming years it is set to grow to a great degree. Now let's look at cricket, because we're talking about that for a while. Ideally, like FIFA, EA has a very popular game called FIFA. It's extremely popular, and the emoticons of the players are almost real like. And when these people play it competitively, there's an entire arena around it, entire spectator arena around it. Now that evolvement will happen in India. It's not there, but ideally it should be cricket, right? Because football by nature is a sport where if two people are playing or if four are playing, it's very competitive. It's almost like real life. But cricket, by nature, cricket itself is a game which I'm told that there are some games in the market, and there's one which I think Dream Sport had launched, which is a very good game, which is a very good cricket game. But inherently, cricket is a guy coming bowling and then somebody hitting. The esports version of it is not very competitive. When you're playing it, or it's not very I would say unlike a football, because a football, when you're two people, if you and I are competing, and by using the device we are able to pass through. It's almost like you're the player there. But in cricket, that's not the case. Even a contact sport, I would say, like kabaddi, would be more involving for a player. So that is a downside of that's you can't do anything because that's the nature of cricket. But I would say, in a nutshell, that's where we are as far as esports is concerned. But
Is there a structure to it, though?
yeah, there is a structure. There is a structure, and I think there's only where there is no structure is where the selection of players who to represent the country. Now that also, just like a physical sport, you need certain state level associations first, leading up to a national association. That also, I think, there is a Bharat Esports Association. I'm sure going forward there will be a formal structure, and then that competitive side of things will also take shape. But pro gamers who are aspiring to be professional gamers in the future, that number for sure is increasing. Yeah.
So it's like any
I
other
think in
sporting discipline.
in the next 3 to 5 years you'll see a huge change.
So you could have a young aspirant, like how you have somebody for a cricket, football, you will
They
have
are
somebody
already
for
there.
esports.
Yes,
also.
yes.
And do they have specialization in that, or
No, they have. So what they have is you have. So in the Asian Games, last Asian Games, there were 6 medal esport competitions. 6.
Yeah.
So there are 6 different games. So some are mind games, some are like first-person shooter, like a PUBG game, and so like that. If tomorrow it becomes part of the Olympic, it's not yet because of the in first-person shooter there is certain shooting. When you're the guy in the game, so you're shooting. So that I think goes against the ethos of the Olympics. But if it's made it to the Asian Games, I'm sure it'll make it to going forward maybe to the Olympics. If that happens, then whether it's 6 types of games or it is 8 or 2, then you'll have countries will have to send players representing them to be at those tournaments.
So you foresee to it to
I
be one
foresee,
of the major
in the next in the 5 years at least from now. But from the India business side, I think 3 to 5 years you will see a huge upsurge in that.
And similarly, like any other sport, the recreational part of it will also.
So recreational part is already there. Yeah, it's already there.
Already there. And monetized, probably.
Yeah, it's decently monetized. I would say it's growing from the $250 million to where it is now.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. But you followed sports for so many years, also as a sports fan.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
I still
also. So very seldom do you meet somebody who's seen sport across the years and across sporting disciplines, right? I know you. It's not only cricket or football for you. It's like the racket sports. You name the sport, and you've every major sport I've seen you followed.
That's one of the grounds my wife has against me. So anything happening in sport, you would watch on TV.
So if I ask you for your 3 big sporting moments across the time, which would
I would think Usain Bolt with the 2008 world record 100 meters. The entire atmosphere and the entire from a TV spectator audience was outstanding, and I would think similarly for the spectators in the stadium at that point in time would be similar. Messi, I think, winning the 22 World Cup after almost 2 decades, because he's playing at the peak for Barcelona, but Barcelona and other teams, and then not that one thing which eluded him. And from Liverpool side, of course, to the 2005 Istanbul finals against AC Milan, after being 0-3 down and then winning on penalties. That is, I think, memorable. And you asked me 3, but I just add one more, which is beating Barcelona after being 0-3 down in the semis of the Champions League, and then that year winning it also. So those, I think, would be in the second leg at Anfield, overturning it 4-3 against a Barcelona team led by Messi and all of those people, Suarez. So I think these 4 really stand out for me.
Excellent. And your 3 top sports athletes across sporting disciplines?
Yeah, I would first and foremost Novak Djokovic, 24 Grand Slams. But not only that, the level at which he's playing today uh, against, I think only a Sinner and Alcaraz can beat him, because he reaches the finals of most of the, the big four. So Novak is there. I would say I would also consider Lindan as one of the, legends, outstanding, for, because in
Yeah.
these kind of sport, you see, and even I was reading some stats, and now with, with so much of technology, you get stats on every sports person, every sport. And cricket, I would think, scores very low on all of that, because if you look at a a forward in a football, a winger or a forward, he runs at about 11, 12 kilometers per match, and at high speed, right? That's 12
Right.
kilo, 11, 12 kilometers. If we run, I mean, you're into running, so you would know it's not easy, right? And to do that every 3 days
With 3 days.
with the, with the packed calendars, it's extremely difficult. So I would say Lindan, you say Novak Djokovic, and I would say Messi, only because of the longevity of being at the top for 2 decades. So these three, I think, would be. There are many more. There's Jack Nicklaus, of course, in golf,
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, but I would put these three right on top.
So, sir, as we conclude, at the inner athlete, we speak to three segments. One segment we'll cover when we do recreational sports.
Yeah.
But for the entrepreneurs in sport and sports management students and aspirants who want to get into this line, if you'd like to say something to them.
Yeah, I would think that the market conditions is conducive right now, than much more than what it was before. I used to get a lot of people who would do their MBAs, their post graduation in sport management from many cities across the globe, and then look at, India as a career destination. But at that point in time, there were not too many opportunities. I would think now is the right time, as I began by saying in this interview also. It's an inflection point, I would think, for the entire sport industry and business. And so, with so many private participation in sport leagues, there will be requirement for, for people who have studied sport management and, making it a career. So I would think that there's a great opportunity, and we should look at, making a career out of it. And I'll be happy to help with whoever, may want to outreach, make and reach out to me. Thanks.
So we'll put Mr. Landers' social media uh, pages available. If you liked what you saw today, please like, share, subscribe. This was one of the finest voices in Indian sports business, talking to us today. I'm sure you feel enriched. The inner athlete in you is alive today. Thank you so much. We are now available also on Spotify. We are available as YouTube Shorts and Reels if you want to see some segments. Keep the support on. Keep the inner athlete in you on. Thank you.